The lesson today is going to be entitled Israel and Jesus. This lesson is going to be about both Israel and Jesus. So we'll start at Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. The word likeness would mean character or personality. So when God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, he's saying, let us make man in our image. Let us make man that looks like us. And let us make man with the same character as us, personality, style, and some of the same qualities as well. He said, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. The word dominion just means control. So, and let them have control over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Okay, so let's move over here to Genesis 2 and 7. Genesis 2 and 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground. So what the Lord did was he took that dust from the ground and he molded the image of man. Because he said, let us make man in our image. So he actually molded his image with that dirt. And he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. He breathed into that dirt statue that he made in his image and breathed into it the breath of life into the nostrils of it, and that statue became a living soul. Okay, let's move over here to Genesis chapter 35 verse 23. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. So Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. These are Jacob's sons. And Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. Notice that I said Issachar is one of Jacob's sons. Okay, now let's move over to 46. Genesis chapter 46, verse 13. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, Phuvah, and Job, and Shimron. Notice that I said Job was one of Issachar's sons. So if Job was Issachar's son and Jacob was Issachar's father, then Job was Jacob's grandson. Okay, now let's see what color they were. This is Job giving a description of what color he is. This is Job 30 and 30. My skin is black upon me. Okay, we have Job saying, openly stating what color his skin is. He said, my skin is black upon me. So if Job's skin was black upon him, chances are his father's skin was black upon him as well. And his father's skin was black upon him as well, which would be Jacob. And Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. So if Jacob's skin was black upon him, chances are all his children's skin was black upon them as well. Okay, now let's move over here to Song of Solomon. Now that we know the color of Israel, let's move over to Song of Solomon chapter 5, verse 10. This is Solomon talking. He said, my beloved is white and ruddy. The word ruddy means reddish. So his beloved is white and reddish, the chiefest among 10,000. And here he's saying his friend, he's talking about his friend here on verse 11. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. So who today has locks black as a raven and bushy? They would be considered as Negroes. Negroes are the ones who have locks who are bushy and black as a raven. Okay, now let's move over here to 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 27. This is 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 27. The leprosy, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper, as white as snow. So here, what this scripture is saying is that leprosy is a skin disease that causes the skin to become as white as snow. A leper as white as snow. Leprosy causes the skin to become as white as snow. Okay, now let's move over here to Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous as white as snow. So here's another example of leprosy. Leprosy causes the skin to become as white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Who's closer to leprosy today? Who would you consider as being a leper? Okay, let's move over here to Lamentations chapter 5, verse 10. Okay, this is Israel here. Lamentations chapter 5 verse 10 is giving an example of Israel. Our skin was black like an oven. Whose skin is black like an oven today? Those people will be considered as what you would call African Americans. So the 12 tribes of Jacob, who are the true Israelites, skin was black like an oven. Job said his skin was black upon him. And here we have Israel here saying our skin was black like an oven. They say here also, because of the terrible famine. You see, when your skin tightens up, it gets darker. But overall, their skin was black like an oven. Okay, now let's move over to Lamentations chapter 4, verse 8. Now, this is also talking about Israel. It says, their visage. The word visage just means appearance. Their visage is blacker than coal. Or in other words, their appearance is blacker than coal. Here's another example of the skin color of Israel. Whose skin color would be considered as blacker than coal today? That would be so-called Negroes, African Americans. They all may not be that black today because of the mixing that's been going on over the years. But who's closer to it? Who's closer to the color? Israel. What today, the people that are today called African Americans. Okay. Now, we're going to move over here to Matthew 1 and 18. But that's going to be in another video. We're going to end this video here. Okay, now we're going to start off at Matthew chapter 1 verse 18. This is all about Jesus here. Starting with the birth. Now the birth of Jesus was on this wise. When as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. So when Mary was espoused to Joseph, the word espoused means married. So when Mary was married to Joseph, before they came together, before they had sex, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. Before they had sex, she was pregnant with a child from the Holy Ghost. Okay, let's move to the next chapter, chapter 2, verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. So you had wise men coming from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? They were looking for the baby. For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. So there was a star in the east on the same day that Jesus was born. There was a big old bright star in the sky in the east on the same day Jesus was born. And you had these wise men that were coming down to worship him because they already knew that that star meant the King of the Jews had been born. Okay, now let's move to verse 11. And when they were coming to the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. And when they were coming to the house, they saw the baby with his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. So when they came in the house and they seen Jesus, baby Jesus, King of the Jews, they immediately fell down and began to worship him. Jesus was being worshipped as a baby on the day of his birth, when that bright star was in the east. These old wise men knew that the King of the Jews had been born, Jesus. Okay, verse 13. And when the wise men departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. So Joseph was asleep, and then an angel came to him in a dream and told him, arise and take the young child, take Jesus and Mary, and flee into Egypt. And be thou there until I bring ye word. So y'all go into Egypt and stay there until I bring you the word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So here you had Herod. He was a king of Bethlehem during the time Jesus was born. And the angel came to Joseph in a dream and told him, take the baby and Mary and y'all flee to Egypt, because Herod, he was trying to kill baby Jesus. He was seeking to kill baby Jesus because he knew that Jesus was King of the Jews. So he was seeking to kill baby Jesus. So Jesus had men bowing down worshiping as a baby. He also had kings wanting to kill him as a baby. Okay. Now let's move to 19. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought to the young child's life. So once the angel in the beginning, the angel told Joseph to flee into Egypt with the baby and his mother until I bring you word. And then here you had the angel coming back, bringing them word, saying, okay, y'all go back into Israel, because Herod, the king who was trying to kill baby Jesus, he dead. So now y'all, it's okay for y'all to go back. Okay, now let's move over to chapter 3. We're on Matthew chapter 3, verse 16. And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting upon him. So the word baptize just means to spiritually purify or to spiritually cleanse. So once Jesus became baptized, or once he became spiritually purified, spiritually cleansed, the heavens opened up. As soon as he came out of that water, the heavens opened up. And the Spirit of God came down like a dove and lightning upon him. And lighting upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." Okay, so let's move over here to Matthew 4. Chapter 4, verse 8. Again, the devil taking him up into an exceeding high mountain and showed him all the kings of the world and the glory of them, and said unto him, "All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me." Then said Jesus unto him, "Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve." See, Satan was trying to tempt Jesus. He said, he took him and showed him all the kingdoms of the earth, and said, if you bow down and worship me, I'll give you all these kingdoms. And Jesus told him, the only person that you should be worshiping is the Lord thy God. He said, "Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve." So Jesus already knew that the only person that I'm going to bow down to and worship and serve is the Lord thy God. Okay, now let's move over to 23. Matthew 4 and 23. And Jesus went all about Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. So you had this one man going all about a city, teaching, preaching, healing all manner of sickness. All manner of sickness. You had this one man going around healing all manner of sickness, and you had this one man going around healing all manner of diseases among the people. Somebody asked, well, where's that man at today? You know how that'll be a blessing to have one. You know how many people that's sick now today or have diseases? That'll be a blessing for one man to be able to go around this whole earth healing all manner of sickness and all manner of diseases. That's how powerful and wonderful Jesus was. Okay, let's move over to chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, verse 27. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery already with her in his heart. So, in other words, it's not saying don't look at a woman. It's okay to look at a woman, but when you look at her with intentions of lusting after her, or you look at her in a sexual manner, you've already committed adultery in your mind. When you look upon a woman and you fantasize having sex with her or performing sexual acts of any kind, you're lusting after the flesh. You've already committed adultery in your mind. That's something that the Lord is saying don't do. Okay, now let's move over here to Matthew 6. And we're going to move to the next chapter, 6. Matthew chapter 6. Verse 6. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. So basically, what he's saying is, when you pray, you don't have to pray all loud for everybody to hear. He would prefer for you to go into your closet, shut your door, and pray to him in secret. Because he see what you're doing in secret, he gonna reward you openly. Another way to do it would be pray in your mind. You don't have to verbally pray. You can bow down on your knees, or you can go in your closet or wherever you're at and just pray in your mind. You can be walking down the street praying in your mind. That's doing it in secret. Because don't nobody knows that you're praying but you. So by praying in secret, the Lord is going to reward you openly. That's what he's saying, and that's what he's going to do. Okay, now let's move over. That was Matthew 6 and 6. Matthew 6 and 7. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do. You don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over. For they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. See, they'll say the same thing over and over, but they think they're going to be heard because they're doing a lot of talking, you see. He's doing a lot of talking, but he's saying the same thing. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye even ask of him. The Lord already knows what you need before you even ask him. You don't even have to ask him. He already knows what you need. Okay, now let's move over to Matthew 7 and 1. Judge not, that ye be not judged. When you judge, you pass an opinion on somebody. So what he's saying is, don't pass any opinions on no one if you don't want anybody passing no opinions on you. You know, you may look at somebody and pass an opinion, or form an opinion. Or you may have a small conversation with someone and form an opinion. What the Lord is saying is, don't do that to them if you don't want them to do it to you. Okay, that's Matthew chapter 7 verse 1. Now let's move to verse 7. Ask, and that shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. So that verse there is pretty much self-explanatory. He's saying if you ask, then it'll be given to you. If you seek, you shall find. Just knock, and the door be open unto you. It's action. You have to use action here. These are action words. You have to get into the action. Okay. The next chapter, we're moving on to Matthew chapter 8. But we're going to start that in another video. Matthew chapter 8, verse 1 through 4. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, there came a leper, and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, canst make me clean? And Jesus put forth his hand, and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. So we know from earlier that leprosy is a skin disease that causes the skin to become as white as snow. So all Jesus did was reach forth his hand, touched him, and immediately that white skin started disappearing. That leprosy started leaving his skin. Okay, now we're still in chapter 8, Matthew chapter 8. Let's look at verse 14. And when Jesus was come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick with a fever. So Jesus came into Peter's house, and he saw his wife's mother laid and sick with a fever. So, and he touched her hand, and the fever left. That's all he had to do. His wife's mother was laid up, sick with the fever, and all the Lord had to do was all Jesus had to do was touch her hand, and the fever left. That's power. You show me a man on earth today that can do that. Okay, let's move to Matthew chapter 8, verse 23. And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with waves, but he was asleep. See, Jesus was on the ship, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he said unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this? Or in other words, what kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Wow. They said, what kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? They were on a ship, and there was waves just roaring, just wave knocking that ship left and right. Jesus, he was asleep on the ship. They ran to him, woke him up, and said, Lord, save us. This ship is just rocking back and forth, and we think it's going to tip over. And the Lord said, why are y'all fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he rose, and he rebuked those winds and those seas, and there was a great calm. You show me a man that can do that. The waves roaring and the sea roaring and waving and he just says, he just rebuked the winds and the sea, and it just stops. These men were marveled. They said, what kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Okay, now let's move to Matthew chapter 9. This is Jesus in the flesh here. This is things he's doing in the flesh. This is something that not a man on earth can dare to do or will ever be able to do. Matthew chapter 9, verse 28. And when he was coming to the house, the blind man came to him. And Jesus said unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? They said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, According to your faith, be it unto you. And their eyes was opened. And Jesus straightly charged them, saying, See, that no man know it. But they, when they were departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. So, you had these two blind men. They were following Jesus and they was crying. They wanted to be healed of their blindness. So Jesus asked him, Do you believe I can do it? And by them believing that he can do it, their eyes was open. So their eyes was open because of their faith. The faith that they had that in him that he can do it. Then once he opened their eyes and healed them of their blindness, they went about the whole country, spreading his fame, telling them how marvelous this man was. We were blind, and he, by his power, we can see now. They went up that whole country and told about how powerful and how great this man was. Hey, that was Matthew 9. Okay, now let's move over to, we're going to jump to Matthew 13. Matthew 13 and 10. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? The word parable is an indirect statement. So the disciples came and said unto him, they asked Jesus, why do you speak in parables? Why do you always talk with indirect statements? Why don't you never state anything directly? Why is it always indirect? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. So when he talks to them, he doesn't say it directly, he says it indirectly, so that only certain people will be able to understand. Because it's only given to certain people to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. To others, it's not given. Okay, now we're going to move all the way down to verse 39. And I found this particularly interesting. Matthew chapter 13, verse 39. The enemy that sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world. Okay, now this will be considered as a mystery here. The harvest is the end of the world. The word harvest means gathering. So the gathering is at the end of the world. You might ask yourself, well, what gathering? What gathering is at the end of the world? Okay, that's 39. And the reapers are the angels. The reapers are the angels. Okay, now let's look at 43, verse 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun. So, during the harvest, at the end of the world, the harvest means the gathering. The angels are the reapers. So who are the angels? The angels are the gatherers. So who are the angels going to gather? The angels are going to gather all the righteous. At the end of the world, the angels, they're going to gather all the righteous. And then the righteous are going to shine as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Okay, let's look at 47 through 49. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which, when it was full, they threw to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So the kingdom of heaven is like a net cast into the sea, scoop up a whole bunch of life, and when a net is full, they take that net to shore, sit down, gather the good into vessels or in buckets or whatever vessel they may have, and they cast the bad away. So that's symbolic to the harvest. So the angels are the reapers. They're gonna do when the harvest at the end of the world, when the harvest takes place, they're gonna gather all the good from the evil. Okay, here's an example of that. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. Separate. Remember the gathering? The angels are going to do that gathering, and they're going to gather. First, they're going to separate the wicked from the just. Then they're going to gather all the righteous, and the righteous are going to shine as the sun. Shine bright as the sun. And this is going to happen at the end of the world. So at the end of the world, all the wicked, the angels are going to come down and do this. They're going to separate. You're going to have your wicked on this side, and you're going to have your just on this side. So this called, and or you can also call it the harvest. So right, you may hear a lot. Well, now we're living in the last days. We're living in the last days. That's true. We are living in the last days, and the harvest is getting ready to take place. That great separation is getting ready to begin. The angels are the reapers. The angels gonna be the ones doing the separating and the gathering. They're gonna separate the wicked from the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. So the angels, they're gonna separate the wicked from the just. They're gonna gather all the righteous, and they're gonna leave the wicked here, and they're gonna cast the wicked into the furnace of fire. What is that furnace of fire? They're gonna set this place ablaze. They're gonna gather the righteous, gather the just, and they're gonna set all the wicked on fire. There should be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So they're gonna be cussing each other out and just like beasts, growling and everything else. The wicked are gonna be separated from the just at the end of the world. It's gonna be a great separation. So just make sure you're just. Make sure you're not. When that separation takes place, you want to make sure that you're not on that wicked side. You really do. You want to be on that just side. When those angels come and they do make this separation, you do not want to be caught on that wicked side. And we're gonna continue this lesson in the next video. Okay, this is Matthew chapter 14, verse 15. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals." But Jesus said unto them, "They need not depart. Give ye them to eat." And they said unto them, "We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, "Bring them hither to me." And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, and blessed and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did eat. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up of the fragments that remained 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men. So, I'm pretty sure you've heard Jesus feeding the 5,000 men with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Well, if you haven't, well, you just did. Jesus fed 5,000 men with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And back then, in those times, fish were not as small as they are now. Those fish were pretty big. And he took 5 loaves of bread, and they were filled. And it's possible, although in scripture doesn't say, it's possible that everybody didn't get fish. Some people probably only ate bread. But nonetheless, everyone was filled. Okay. Let's look at verse 26. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a spirit." And they cried out for fear. So, Jesus' disciples, they followed him everywhere he went. So one day they seen him walking on the waters. They seen him walking on the sea. And they were troubled. They said, "Look, and there goes a spirit." They said, "It is a spirit." And they cried out for fear. They seen Jesus walking on that water, and they cried out for fear. They were scared. But straightway Jesus spake to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid." So he let them know, "This is me. You don't have to be afraid." Because they seen him walking on water, and they were scared. The same way as you may be scared if today you see a man walking on water. These are some of the things that Jesus did when he was in the flesh. Okay, let's look at Matthew 27. We're going to jump all the way over to Matthew 27. Now what we're going to do, this is a conclusion of the lesson, but we're going to get into the crucifixion. Matthew 27 and 27. The soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. So the soldiers of the governor, they took Jesus to the hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. So all the soldiers that came over here to Jesus, and they stripped him. They stripped his clothes off of him and put on him a scarlet robe. They stripped the clothes off of him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, when they made a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand. So a reed is like it's like an arrow. It's like it's closer to an arrow than anything else. So they put the crown of thorns on his head, and they stuck the arrow into his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." They mocked and laughed at him. And they spit on him. And they took that reed, or they took that arrow, and smote him on the head. So they took the arrow and hit him across the head with it, while he has the crown of thorns on his head. And after that, they mocked him, they laughed, and all the other stuff. Then they took the robe off of him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. The word crucify means put to death by nailing hands and feet to a cross. So he has the crown of thorns on his head. He was stuck in his hand with an arrow, a sharp, pointy arrow. And he was hit in across the face with that arrow. So you can just imagine, that arrow probably scratched his face all up. With the crown of thorns on his head, you can imagine the blood is probably gushing down from his head as a result of the thorns. Okay, now let's look at verse 35. And they crucified him. We've been over that. The word crucify means they put him to death by nailing his hands and feet to the cross. So they nailed his hands and his feet to the cross. So now he's nailed to the cross. His hands and his feet are nailed to the cross. He has this crown of thorns on his head, and he probably has all kind of whips on his face from them hitting him with the arrow. Now let's move on to 57. When the evening was come, there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. He went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered. So Joseph, he went to and begged for the body of Jesus. And then they gave him the body. and when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth. So Joseph had the body of Jesus. He wrapped it in a linen cloth. or what you would call today as a sheet. He wrapped his body in a sheet. and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had made out in the rock. And he rolled a great stone at the door and left. So he took the body of Jesus, wrapped it up in a sheet, put it in his own tomb, and closed of it with and got a big old rock and closed the tomb. Okay, now let's move to 28. Matthew 28 and 2. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven, and came and rolled back the stone from the door, and sat upon it. So the angel, a big angel, came out of heaven, took that stone that was covering that tomb that Jesus was in, and rolled it back, and he sat on that rock. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment was white as snow. His gown was white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. So even the guards, when they seen this angel come out of heaven and move that big old rock and then sit on it, they were so scared they became as dead men. If you were to see an angel come out of